The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be here with you on this Thursday morning. It's a very exciting day. We've got an incredible lineup for you today. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. And as I said, the lineup is amazing today. So we have a lot we have to get to. I want to remind all of you that this show is meant to be fully interactive. There are lots of ways that you can participate with us and interact with us. So Emily's going to start to show you some of the different ways that you can get in contact with us and view the show. I'm going to remind you the first way, the best way at this moment in time to watch us live, the only way to watch us live is www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you'll see a website with a lovely computer screen. On the computer screen, the show plays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We interrupt that feed to bring you the live show 2 hours a day. And while we are live, you have the opportunity to interact with our experts. And that's that white box that's next to the computer screen. Put your cursor there, type away whatever you'd like, hit enter, and it shows up magically on my screen. Now that live feature is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sometimes you guys, when you're watching the show, you'll see something and you want to put a comment in. I love that. Whatever time it is, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning your time, go ahead and put that question in. Make sure you reference what it is you're talking about, because I won't know where you dropped into the feed. Also, know that that feature is free and it does not require you to log in. There is no credit card. In fact, we don't even know who you are. You have total anonymity when you write in on that live feature, unless you choose to give us an email address or something like that. If there's information that you need something forwarded to you, then it's important that you do include something to let us know how to get a hold of you. I can edit that out before I show it to the live audience. So we can keep you anonymous, which is a very good thing. I want to remind you at the start of the show, first of all, I don't want to forget that we're hoping that next week we're going to be able to bring you the live show on your tablets. You guys heard our call, you subscribed to us on YouTube, and you guys are continuing to do that. And I do encourage you, if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube. And while you're there, check out, we put the whole show on YouTube, but we also put highlights, lovely shorter blurbs that are really great when you don't have a whole lot of time but want to learn about something, and you can search the keywords. Let's say you want to know about what do I do when my child has a rash. You can put that into the keywords and see what comes up. But I want to remind all of you that I am not an expert in autism, but we will have some experts in autism with us today. It's very exciting. But I'm a parent. That's what my role is here, to bring the parent perspective. And my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He's now 10, and he's doing really well. And I know that that's not because he outgrew autism, pshaw, as if there was such a thing. And I know that it's not because I was just so brilliant and had it so together. Oh, that didn't happen. And it's not because I had so much money that I could pay for top of the line treatment, because that is so far from the truth. Can we just talk about that for a second? No, I got incredibly lucky, and we also got incredibly motivated. I would say those two things. And then my son and a whole lot of other people worked really, really hard. But it wasn't because we had money. And we do talk about funding on this show, because I know if there's some of you watching thinking to yourself, admit it, you've said, well, those are people who had the money to afford that treatment, and it just isn't true. That there are ways that we can all access things, and there are ways we can be clever about getting funding. So we talk about those kinds of things on the show. And different modes that we can use. We always talk about, if you can't do this, then there's this that you can do. And if you can't do that, then here's the next thing that you can do. But there's always something that you can do. And I want to empower you like I was empowered to get help for your child. And my son did get the most amazing treatment. And when I talk about CARD, sometimes I think, you guys think, she's just saying that because, well, yeah, I am just saying that because they gave my child back to me. And that's no small thing to me. So if you feel like I wax poetic about CARD in particular, that would be why. I'm well aware of the fact that there are some fabulous ABA providers out there. And in fact, we're going to have the fantastic Dr. Amanda Adams going to be joining us in just a few minutes. And she's going to be talking about the ABA service that she has been providing that is top notch. So, but I always like to remind you that if it sounds like I love CARD, it's because that's where my child was treated, and I know firsthand how amazing it is. But there are many ABA providers out there, and so we certainly talk about that and the benefits of ABA within that 360-degree scope of autism, because we got to talk about ABA, but there's a lot of other things to talk about as well. All right, so I hope you'll join me in empowering yourself and ask the questions, get the help that you need. Let's get you hooked up with the resources that are going to help you with your individual circumstances. Whether you are a parent, teacher, practitioner working with a child who's on the autism spectrum, or you yourself are on the autism spectrum. Today we kind of have like the full gamut, right? I'm a parent. We have a doctor who's an expert in the field of autism who is treating and working on helping people to teach children on the autism spectrum. And we are also going to have an adult who himself is on the autism spectrum and is an author. Travis Breeding is going to be with us in the second hour. And we've got some really cool stuff with Ashley Colis later. I'm jumping way ahead here. In any case, we always like to start the show with a little warm-up. Our jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to make sense of it within our individual world. So we give you an actual definition, which sometimes is so jargon-intensive that it makes me howl. Used to make me mad. I don't get mad anymore because that's a waste of time. And then we give you a working definition, which sometimes makes our experts break out into hives because it's not as exact as the actual definition. But as a parent, I know sometimes we just need to get a foothold and begin to understand something before we can run with it, right? Okay, so today's word, it's one of those confusing ones because we think we understand what it is, but it has a whole new meaning in the world of autism. It is mastery. There it is. Great timing, Emily. Hey, can I stop for a second and say everybody needs to wish our fabulous technical director and our live producer, Emily Goodwin, a really happy birthday. It is her birthday today, and you know if you watch this show, we couldn't do the show without Emily. Because I don't know what I'm doing technically. So happy birthday to Emily, and write in and tell Emily a happy birthday because she is an amazing person. We need to celebrate the fact that she's here and has been here now. I'm not even going to say how many years. She's young enough that I could, but I'm not going to say it. She's just a puppy. She's almost half my age. That's really depressing to me. Moving on. Our term today is mastery. As I said, it's one of those words that's kind of confusing because mastery is a term that we're familiar with, right? So we have an assumption that we know what we're talking about, and then we find out, oh, this is a little different in the world of autism. Our actual definition: the point at which the child is said to have successfully acquired the target behavior determined by previously established criteria. Okay, it's not the most difficult definition to understand, but I get a little bit lost in early years with this, okay, what's the target behavior and what's the previously established criteria? So let's take a look at our working definition for mastery. When the child is independently demonstrating the desired skill at the desired level. I always say to myself, as my sort of parent Reader's Digest thing, is this is the moment when you do the My Fair Lady kind of thing when you say, by George, I think she's got it. Because your child is demonstrating the skill at a level often enough that it seems like they've got it. And the important thing for me as a parent to remember is that we set a mastery criteria before we start teaching a lesson. So let's say that we're going to teach a child how to skip. And beforehand, we say to ourselves, okay, I want the child to be able to do this in, at least across 3 different sessions with at least 2 different people. So I want them to be able to do it on Monday with Aunt Barbara, and I want them to be able to do it on Tuesday with our therapist, Jean, and I want them to be able to do it on Wednesday again with Aunt Barbara, right? So that's 3 different sessions, and I can say that I want them to be consecutive. I could say that I want it to be across 2 sessions. I can say I want it with 3 different people. If I see that they only want to be able to do it with 2 people, I can say I want them to be able to do it with their brother, Tommy, as well. And I want to set some sort of ratio that they can do it successfully in 4 out of 5 trials. Because, honestly, most skills, even if we know how to do them, sometimes we don't get it right. If you asked me to skip right now, I bet it would take me a second to refigure it out, right? So some things we're going to set a criteria at 100%, and some things we're going to say we want it in 4 out of 5 trials. Other things we might say we want it at a 3 out of 5 trials, right? But we're going to set that criteria ahead of time. We're going to say, this is what I think it's going to look like when they're mastered. But we may see when we get there that, no, that isn't quite what it looks like. And I always remind myself that it really is about setting a guideline, but the criteria doesn't drive whether they actually accomplished it. We look at what the child does to see, okay, does the mastery criteria fit, right? It seems a little weird in the beginning, but I think when you get in the moment and you say to yourself, all right, I'm going to have a plan. I'm going to have a plan of what success looks like. I think success is going to look like this. But then when you get there, you're going to tweak the criteria to match what actually happened. But you'll know, I think we all get a feeling for when the child really has the skill. But if we don't set that criteria in the beginning, we're not going to be as effective at, what they say about when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Things are going to change along the way, but you got to have a plan in the beginning. I think it's going to look like this. So this is the direction we're moving in. And then you go, okay, it looks slightly like this, but they've got it. Woohoo. And that's mastery. We're working towards mastery all the time. We're working towards generalization all the time. We've done that word before here on the show. And mastery is a lovely thing. When your kid starts mastering all kinds of skills, it's time to celebrate. Really very exciting time. Okay, we always have a question for you at the top of the show, and you guys have been writing in today. I hear that there are a lot of answers to the question of the day. We're going to check in a little bit later on. Our question is, what safety issues are you worried about? What's keeping you up at night? What's really kicking your keister? I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and we actually talked about it on the show with Dr. Grandpa because we were talking about it during the break. My son just started 5th grade without an aide, and I'm worried about the classroom that he's in and where he has to go to get to the bathroom, and the fact that he's going to get there and get back, because he kind of sensory-wise disintegrates a little bit when he gets in a surface that's gets in a room that has lots of hard surfaces, very echoey, shiny surfaces. So it was great to hear Dr. Grandpa talk about it and take away some of my fears, and I ended up talking about it with the teacher yesterday and felt so much better. I think, it's great to have a strategy, and it's great to talk about it. It lifts the worry a little bit. So let's lift the worry a little bit. Write in, tell us, and then hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about some of the different strategies we can do to get the worry gone, get the safety on board. So that's our question of the day. We always have a topic for you for the entire week. There's always a topic, and this week is no different. Our topic all this week has been safety. So whenever we have the opportunity to bring home anything about safety issues for kids, we've had a great conversation with several different experts this week. Truly phenomenal. We'll keep talking about safety until we are blue in the face, because, as I said yesterday, it's job number 1. We can do all kinds of things, teach all kinds of skills, help our kids in so many different ways, but if we don't have safety on board, we really don't have much, right? As I mentioned, big show today. Big show. There's a buzz today about the show because we have the very exciting Dr. Amanda Adams, who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. And she is a remarkable expert in the field of autism. And she's also going to be doing a webinar a little bit later on today that I want to invite all of you to. That all you have to do is to come back to the live channel. Here is the title of the webinar. If this doesn't catch your attention, I don't know what would. What if that turns out to be autism? Preventing autism through early identification and intervention. And I know for some of you, there's that frustration of, okay, well, my child's 8, 9, 10. I missed this webinar a couple of years ago. But and I'm going to remind you that when people find out that your child is on the autism spectrum, they come to you and they're going to ask you questions. I can't wait to be a part of this webinar to see, because I know people ask me about how can I prevent this. And for our younger children in our family, I have nieces and nephews who are starting to have kids, and they come to me and say, what am I looking for? What can I do? And for me to be able to say that to them, look, you can get there so much earlier than I did, which means that you are going to have that much better of a shot at making more progress with your child. I don't know that there could be any more important information that we would all want to share with our family members, right? And let's face it, they look to us. We're the people trudging on the path trying to find the answers, right? As parents of these younger generation of kids. So really exciting that she's going to be doing that webinar this afternoon. And then we're going to have her here with us talking about some of the things that she is involved in right now, because it's very exciting. If we have time later on, because we've added a guest on today, if we have time, we're going to have a school tip for you. A lot of you have gone back to school this week or are going back in the coming weeks. And we definitely have great stuff with Ashley today. She's coming in with all the pencil grips today that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. And eventually we're going to do a giveaway for that. And today is the giveaway for the backpack from last week. Many of you wrote in, and we're going to announce who the winner is for that. And then after Ashley, Travis Breeding, who is a young man, an adult on the autism spectrum. He is the author of, I believe, 15 books now. And Travis is going to be with us, joining us via Skype from New York. Very exciting to have Travis again with us on the show. So all of this and your comments and your questions coming up. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with Dr. Amanda Adams. Stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism. My beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some gases?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina, Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with a very special guest. We have Dr. Amanda Adams with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a thrill to have you here. I'm going to go over some of your credentials. You're an associate professor of psychology, and that is at Fresno State.
Yeah, that's right.
And you are also the director of the Central California Autism Center.
Yes.
Very impressive credentials.
Thank you.
And you have created a buzz here. Everybody is so excited that you are here in the building. You have a big following.
Well, I love being here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. And I asked you before, if when we were talking about doing this interview, if you could come and talk a little bit about, because you've got sort of the ideal classroom going on in your center. Is that correct?
We have set up a model classroom. So it's designed as a transition environment for children who have gone through our program with early intervention and are moving back into public classrooms, general ed classrooms. So we're trying to take as many of those features of a public classroom and bring them into the model classroom so they can practice that environment before they go back to school.
Well, it sounds incredible. And you are using a tool that's very close to my heart in that classroom. Tell us what you're using.
We use the skills curriculum, and our supervisors, who are our graduate students, and some of our other senior staff find this to be an incredibly useful tool because it helps them catch the little gaps that they might otherwise have missed before the kids go back, especially in the social skills domains. Sometimes it's difficult to recreate that kind of skill that they're going to need in the public classroom, but the skills is so detailed it really helps us to address those kinds of factors.
Okay, and can you give me like a quick idea of how effective it has been and how, like a specific instance of when you're using this and how, because I know there are teachers out there watching and going, I just don't get it. How can you use this in a classroom?
Well, it's really nice because we can do the group environment set up to address things like taking turns, raising your hand, but all of the kids still have individualized goals as well. And so we can focus on exactly what a particular child may need. Like, for instance, we have a child that needed just practice on the inhibiting body movements. He was a little bit too much in other kids' space. So skills helps to address that. It's one particular goal there. So we could address that, and that could be part of his individual goals, while other children were working on other things that they needed. So it really helps hone in on how they're going to be very successful once they go back into their typical general ed environments.
It's really exciting. As a former teacher, the idea that we have a tool that can help us to get at those specific things, to get those kids caught up. And you're seeing it to be effective in the classroom?
Very effective, yes.
I love hearing that.
Yes.
As a parent, I'm a big fan of skills, and I like using it at home. But I think there are so many different ways that skills can be used. It's important for teachers to know that it can be very effective in the classroom.
Yeah. Another thing, I think the teachers sometimes get a little bit caught into following curriculum, just the next thing that follows. So this is the next piece after that, the next piece after that. It gets a little bit rote. And with the skills, we can really use the individualization components so it doesn't become that way. So we can have portions of the classroom that are for everybody, and then portions of the goals that just work with the kids. And we have those on a little separate clipboard, so staff can check those off easily, so they can use both the general skills and the individual skills, and they don't get lost.
Very exciting. If people want to know more about your program and your model classroom, where could they go to find out more?
They can go to our website, which I can give you the address later to put up.
We can absolutely do that.
Or they can email me as well.
Okay, spectacular. I want to take a short break, and then I want to come back and talk more in depth about the kinds of things that you're doing at your center and the ways that skills is involved.
Great.
So we're going to take a break and come back more with Dr. Amanda Adams after these messages.
For the month of August, I figured we'd do some fun in the sun activity. We're gonna make our very own frozen bowling game. It's super fast and super easy. I was inspired by some lessons I saw in skills. All right, so let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are water, water bottles, balloon, and food coloring, which is always optional. First step you're gonna do is make your bowling ball, since it'll have to freeze overnight. The first thing I'm gonna do is take my balloon and put a few drops of food coloring in it. This is optional. If you don't have food coloring or your child has an allergy to it, don't use it, but I thought it'd be fun to make everything super colorful. So, I have my food coloring. I'm gonna put a few drops in here. And then, take this to the sink and fill it up with water and tie a knot. Here's my balloon filled with water and the food coloring. I'm gonna take this and place it in the freezer with some towels just so it holds its shape better. Our next step is to make the bowling pins. I have 10 recycled water bottles that I've refilled with water. Now I'm going to put some food coloring in them.
Straight to the center at full speed. Light will surround you in a blink of an eye.
Now that my bowling ball is frozen and my pins have been filled with water, let's go outside and play with these.
See all the colors in the sky tonight. It's time to let the sunshine hide.
I hope you and your family have fun with the frozen bowling game like I did with my friend Emily. Well, until next time, craft on, guys. Bye.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. Here in the studio with us right now is Dr. Amanda Adams. Yesterday I was calling you Amy Adams because I was having a senior moment.
Sorry,
I guess.
I'll switch places with you. It's okay.
You look a little bit like her, actually. Now that I think about it, but Dr. Adams is busy helping our kids on the autism spectrum, and we should go over again that you are an associate professor of psychology, and that is at Fresno State University,
okay.
And you are also the director of the Central California Autism Center.
Yes.
And we talked just briefly before about the fact that you're using skills there, but tell me a little bit more about the center and what kinds of things go on there.
Okay. We serve children from school age all the way down to about 18 months, I think was our youngest, maybe 20 months. So we have some very, very young children, and then on up. And so we try to create separate environments for them. We have lots of one-on-one work going on, but then for the children who are ready for a more group environment or practicing skills together, we have a few different classroom environments. So we've got a naturalistic preschool environment for our youngest children, and then a kindergarten preparatory environment, and then a school age first through third or fourth grade kind of environment for kids. And of course there's big ranges of the kids with their skills. And all of the kids that attend our center are on the autism spectrum somewhere, but we know that there's such variety within those individuals that we have. Some are very social, some are less, some are very good academically, some are not. So it works to put them together. They still really help each other with skills along the way. So we can do some group activities, but also keep things very individualized, which is partly why we have adopted the skills curriculum at our center and find it so useful.
Well, I was just going to ask you, at what point did you say, okay, we are going to now adopt this and use this as one of our tools? What What was
That's
the
a good
moment?
question. We've been looking for things for a long time, like many providers do. And so we had good assessment tools that have been out for a long time. But assessment tools don't make great curriculum all the time. So we're really looking at breaking things down. And no matter how many tools and books we had, we still had the case where we would come up with, okay, the child's working on this particular group of skills. What are we going to do? We had to write our own programs up still, which is not a bad thing at all. But finding the skills curriculum eliminates some of that work, and it just helps our supervisors focus on what they need to focus on. So now they can do assessments, and the skills works as a good assessment too, but it also works as a very good curriculum. So we can use our global assessment tools, but then use the skills as a way to really identify the individual deficits. And what's our favorite part about it is how specific it can get. So we notice that sometimes kids get splinter skills. Certain areas are very, very strong, but sometimes that masks other deficits. So the skills really helps make sure we don't skip any of those areas, and that we're focusing on what we need to.
Yeah, because we talk a lot about the fact that it really, autism, getting a diagnosis of autism can be so overwhelming because you feel like you've got so many things you have to do. And I remember the first time somebody said to me, it's about getting him caught up. And I went, oh, okay, now that's a concept that I can get my head wrapped around, getting him caught up. Then I discovered with my child that, that's a pretty intensive thing because I had no idea how involved one skill could be. That my child maybe it required 32 things to make that skill work, and he might have 31 of them. But if one was missing, it prevented him from having the success that would keep that behavior happening. And you guys are so brilliant, you wonderful ABA providers, that you take the time and sort that out. But is skills helping you to identify and implement and make that one skill happen?
Absolutely, it really is. And it helps when we work together with teachers or other multidisciplinary teams. With the graphs that skills provides at the end, we can look and see if an area is doing really, really well. Then we know to focus on the areas that are not doing so well. Like for many kids, motor skills are not necessarily a big issue or a big area of deficit. So we can kind of skirt around some of those programs and work on the areas that are deficit so we can bring their levels up evenly, so they're not excelling in one area but still struggling in another. And some of the areas they struggle in are particularly hard to program for. Some of the social skills and the little pockets of skills you were mentioning earlier that are really hard to address. It just helps us go back and look. So, if we're working on a skill, it's very difficult for the child, as the complex social skills often are. We can go back and look and see which piece they may have missed earlier in their prerequisites.
So in that way, it sounds like it can be very individualized.
Yeah, it really can. It's important that our supervisors learn it well. So just like any tool, the better you know it, the more useful it is. Or like your iPhone, the more features you know on it, the more you can do. So it's important to learn it well. But once they are very familiar with it, they find it incredibly useful.
And I know from skills there are so many different aspects of it. Like you said, there's the assessment portion of it, and then there's the curriculum, and then there are the graphs, and there's the behavior intervention plan builder. What kinds of things, how are you guys usually utilizing it? Are you using all of that, or some of it you're using more?
Primarily, we're using the curriculum tool. We definitely use the assessment at the very beginning, and then we use it periodically as we go. The curriculum is the thing that we use on a daily basis. The behavior plan builder is great, but probably because we're at a university and our students are engaged in writing plans on their own, we don't utilize that as much as we probably would if we were out in the field or a standalone agency. But it's a fantastic tool. We like it very much. So the curriculum is the thing that we use day in and day out, and it works for, because it's so extensive, it works for our little tiny ones in the naturalistic preschool, and it works for our preparatory environment for the school-age kids too. So especially the executive functioning area, which is quite unique to this curriculum. It's hard to find that anywhere else. Those tools are just essential for the kids that are really making those advanced gains.
Spectacular. And so if there's a teacher out there watching, a principal, an educator, what would you want them to know about skills in the classroom?
I think that this particular tool can help ease the gap for kids between early intervention, which is quite different than going into public school. And some of the transitions are just not obvious. So getting detailed to the level of looking at particular areas within social skills and areas within executive functioning, that's what will make them successful. So kids that appear to have maxed out on general assessments otherwise sometimes go to public school classrooms and don't do very well because we've missed some of these other little skills. Yeah. They're not as obvious, but a detailed tool like skills can really help focus in and address those. So I think that it'll help seam the gap that exists still between. We can only imitate an environment so much. Once they get into the classroom, that's the real thing. So it'll help get us as close as possible.
I think that's spectacular. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking with Dr. Adams about some of the specific success stories and about this webinar that she's going to be doing this afternoon that you can attend. So stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills Assessment and Curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills Assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills Assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have with us in the studio today our very special guest, Dr. Amanda Adams. She is the director of the Central California Autism Center, a really remarkable place. And we are going to make sure that you guys have the website to be able to go to that website and check it out if you're in Central California. It sounds like a little slice of heaven for a parent, I have to say.
I hope so. That was our intention.
Well, it sounds absolutely incredible. And we've been talking with you a little bit about how you are utilizing Skills in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And I always love to get a couple of success stories of things that are happening that give everybody an idea of what's possible. Sure. So what have you seen?
Well, earlier I mentioned one little guy that we had that needed the specific skill of inhibiting body movement. Mm-hmm. So he's just a joyful, beautiful, exciting kid, but he's a little too exuberant sometimes. Yeah. So gets into other people's space. And you know, sometimes in the one-on-one setting we don't even pick up on that. It's even a fun thing to work with. But when you're in a kindergarten placement, it's not okay to be in somebody else's space. So we really had to learn the personal boundaries, personal space boundaries, and he did that and did a beautiful job. And the other thing that we find really helpful with this is the executive functioning area of skills. So it just addresses things that we're so good at the basic stuff usually, but when it gets to the advanced skills, there's so many little pieces of it that can go wrong if you don't have the whole thing together. So for some kids that are at that level, this same little guy, for instance, really started having an aversion to when the tutors would write down a P to indicate that he was prompted. Ooh. He didn't like that at all. So we did some tolerance building with him and explained that this was really just a help. That just means you're getting help and you're learning. So every time we got a P, now he was able to say that he's learning instead. And he's mastering out his own programs now. He goes in the book and masters his own programs.
Wow.
And really enjoys that very much. So the charting, and he can look at his own graphs now and get a big sense of reinforcement just from the accomplishment itself.
I was going to say how cool that he's looking and saying, this is what... I remember at a certain point when my son said, I want to be done with therapy, and that they said to him, well, okay, then here's what you have to do. And he went, okay. And he got excited about that, you know? And I think when kids can see this is the amount of progress that I'm making, that is really reinforcing for them.
Yeah.
How remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think interesting that he was finding it offensive that they were writing the P as if it was some mark against him. Yes. You know, that it didn't count or something, and at a point where he could, that you looked at it and realized this is what's happening and you could intervene. That's the kind of thing that you're right, could slip between the cracks and really impede progress.
Right, because they can panic in school then when they get an incorrect response or they don't know how to do something. And we find that with lots of our kids. You know, they've been in close programming for a long time, getting lots of feedback, and getting it incorrect is an unpleasant experience for some kids. So when they can start looking at the curriculum with you and planning their own programs and their own success, then it really brings them into the process. They get to make some more choices along the way, and they get to evaluate their own progress, and it turns out to be very fun and reinforcing experience for them. And we have another little guy who announced to us all that he was planning to go to Berkeley the other day.
Okay.
We don't know if it'll happen. We'll have to come back and let you know in a few years. But he's decided on his career path, and a lot of that was due also to helping fill out the graphs at the top of the executive functioning section in the skills program. And looking, and he decided he has graduated from our program and he's ready to go to Berkeley.
Well, bless his little heart. I hope that he will go to Berkeley.
I do too.
Pretty incredible. And so when you talk about the executive functions curriculum, because I think a lot of times as parents we're not entirely sure what you guys are talking about with executive functions. So it's those to explain to all of us which kinds of skills you're really targeting there.
These are the complex cognitive kinds of functions, problem solving skills, thinking about things abstractly, putting concepts together in a layered kind of pattern, so not just one concept, but concept building on another concept, and then being able to relate those together. So some of the skills that are often described as cognitive skills, memory tasks, problem-solving tasks, but they really become they're difficult to break down just at the drop, at the drop of a hat. It's difficult to conceptualize how we're going to break that down to teach it. So the skills curriculum is very helpful with that. It already has that work done for us. And then we can also make sure that kids who are very strong in many social areas are up to par everywhere they need to be. So sometimes a great smile and a really outgoing child can mask things like not being able to remember and respond correctly to something, or being able to solve a problem when it comes up in a more subtle kind of manner. So this helps to make sure that we don't miss those kinds of things.
And I just bring that up for those of you who are watching at home and you have that 15-year-old kid or that 17-year-old kid and you know that they're bright, they're just super duper bright, and they're computer whiz, but you despair because they can't put it together to pack their backpack and get their backpack out of the car, and you're saying to yourself, what's missing here? How am I ever going to get my kid to the next level? Right. It's those executive function skills that help put all of those things together to make for success. And as you were saying, those minute kind of things that really can mess up the whole progression of things.
Right.
And I know so many parents who say, yeah, he's brilliant, but, you know, we can't get out the door in the morning.
Right.
You know, I can't get him to, you know, be able to do this. I go to the backpack because they go, okay, I know he can do the work, but if he can't write down the homework assignment and put it in his planner and have that make it into the backpack, we're dead in the water.
Right. It doesn't matter if he can do the work then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're still going to have the failure that's happening there. Instead of connecting it all to the big woohoo, you got the reinforcement for having strung it all together and done the work.
Absolutely. And you know, another strength to teachers becoming familiar with this program is that those kinds of skills aren't unique to children with autism.
Right.
Many kids struggle with planning skills and problem solving and knowing what to do when things don't go the way they think they're going to go.
Right.
So really being familiar with tricks and tools, little pieces in the curriculum that can help with that would help a teacher, for instance, troubleshoot with lots of different kids.
Absolutely. Because I always point back to that, getting the child caught up. It doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. We just want to get the children caught up. So a great tool to be able to do that. And thank you for telling us how you're using it.
Yeah,
now, you're going to be here this afternoon a little bit later for a webinar that all of you at home can be watching this webinar. All you have to do is show up here, autism-live.com. And what are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be talking about two concepts. One is children at high risk for autism.
Okay.
So this is very young. This particular webinar will focus on very, very young children, and before the age of 3, some before even the age of 2.
Okay.
And we're also talking about partially treated autism. So we're finding now some problems with children who don't receive a formal autism diagnosis and then have trouble remaining eligible for treatment. And it's a big concern that we're having in the Central Valley. Some things are changing with public policy around this, but not quickly enough. So we're going to be talking about some neurological functioning and how to make sure that we catch partially treated autism and avoid that mistake.
Okay, really important, because I know that there are people who write to us on a weekly basis and say, you know, my child is 3 and we've been giving 10 hours of therapy. And think in the moment, thinking, woohoo, we got 10 hours of therapy, but then tuning into a program like ours or something else and finding out, oh, I might have been given a partial prescription.
That's exactly right.
So really important. But I love this idea that everybody's talking about getting, we've talked about early intervention so long, but I love this concept of getting there beforehand.
Yes.
If our child hasn't gotten behind, if we don't have to catch them up, if we just stay current, what could happen?
Right. Or if you only have a few months worth of deficits, that's a lot easier to pick up than a couple of years worth of deficits. So we all know that earlier is better. But now we've got some additional evidence of why that's true and how important it is.
I can't wait to hear about that this afternoon. So that is happening at 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern Time. I will count on all of you to do the math wherever you are. 1:30 to 2:30 Pacific Time, 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern Time. Okay. Thank you so much for being
very
here.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Such a thrill. We are going to take a break. We're going to come back with some answers to the question of the day that you guys have sent in to us on Facebook. If you haven't already written in, please do so now, because we're going to talk about some of the things that you guys said about safety. What's worrying you? Stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3. They shut down, and sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. and I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? What Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job!
Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know in most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new Skills and being, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you could do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Before we move on to other things, I wanted to be able to give you the website. When we were talking to Dr. Amanda Adams, we wanted to make sure you have the website. If you have more questions, that you can reach her. Emily is putting the website there so you can find out more about the Central California Autism Center. So there it is. We're going to leave that up for just a minute because it's a long one. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to write that down. Don't forget that she's going to be here this afternoon doing a webinar on the same channel. You don't have to log in someplace else. Right here from 1:30 to 2:30 Pacific time, and then 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern time. And you can ask questions in live time. I believe you need to. Do they need to reserve a spot? Anybody can watch, right? They can ask questions on the live feature. You can ask questions. Tell them Shannon sent you. You can ask questions. It's okay. I think it's really going to be a very exciting webinar. And then I also wanted to address the question of the day today. You guys have written in a lot of responses, and there's some really amazing stuff here. We asked you today, what safety issues are you worried about? A lot of people talking about elopement, and we've been talking about eloping and wandering this week. And of course, we talk about it a lot of weeks. There's been a lot of stories in the news. It's fresh in our mind about Anthony Kuznia, the 11-year-old who eloped from his home a week ago and 24 hours later, he was found in a river close to his home. And we hear that story all too often. So if we're not worried about eloping, we really should be. We know statistically that over 50% of our children will at some point engage in that kind of behavior. And as we've talked about this week, sometimes you think your child's got it under control and then something new happens and boom, you're right back to the child speeding away. So not surprising that we're hearing that from a lot of you. But we have been talking all week long about the fact that if you get the right experts working with you, we can work on getting these things under control, giving our children functional communication to tell us when there's something that they want to run to or run away from, and lots of different techniques that can be used to help get these behaviors under control. Can be really hard facing that and saying, I've got to get help, but important to do that. So we have somebody who wrote in and said, eloping, my heart is just racing thinking about it. I think that's all of us as parents. A mom who says crossing the street. I will tell you, we continue to work on it. My son can cross the street, but until I know we're at 100% in all circumstances, I'm going to work on it. He's going to be 22 and I'm still going to be working on crossing the street. He's going to say to me, will you leave me alone? As he crosses the street at MIT. I'll be right behind him in a cane going, look, did you look both ways? Good job. Whatever. But I'm just going to keep working on it. Another person who says, the safety issue is very big to me. My boyfriend's ex-wife barged into my home and pushed my 3-year-old autistic son who doesn't speak and yelled at him. Yes, I reacted, and needless to say, she flew out of my home as quick as she can move in, and as she came in anyways. The police officer informed me that if I pressed charges, it would be hard case because my son doesn't speak, so the law isn't here to protect my special needs son because he can't defend himself or say someone hurt him. That to me is one huge safety issue for my child because I just don't have one autistic child, I have 2. A couple of things that I want to talk about there. We have had Emily Island on before, and she has talked about the need for training police officers to understand our particular plight. So I think in a small respect here, you have a police officer who doesn't have a complete understanding of autism and what can be accomplished, because he might be assuming that your child has absolutely no functional communication. In which case, and there have been cases in the past where an individual has had no means of communicating and then he is correct. It's a very difficult, not impossible, but a difficult case to prove. But you were also there. You saw her push your child. So first case there, you get to be an eyewitness and be there as well. And if you have other people that are an eyewitness, or if you have videotape, then it becomes a very different thing. But even having said that, for our kids who are on the autism spectrum, if they have functional communication and can point to something, they don't have to have verbal language to be able to testify against someone and say that they hurt them. There have been, unfortunately, many cases where a child has been hurt by somebody without functional communication, and the court does allow for them to use a picture exchange or iconic communication to be able to talk about who hurt them and in what way they hurt them. And there are webinars, I've attended them, that are just about teaching our children how to not only keep themselves safe, but how to remember details so that when they're having to report what happened, that they can do so effectively. Now, I don't know about you. As a parent, that just makes me ill. But it is important that we prepare our kids and let them know, because it empowers them. There was one case in particular that I can think of, a seminar that I was at, that it was someone who specializes in this kind of training, and we'll see if we can get them on the show. But they were talking about a young girl who does not have verbal communication, but has functional communication, and had something happen to her. In the first go round, it was very upsetting. And you heard me say the first go round because she had someone else do something to her as well. But they had done the training with her in between, and she was able to report it as soon as it happened. And they were able to put that person to jail. And one of the things that she communicated was, can I now get to tell my story? And that she'd had nightmares after the first incident that had happened with a different person, and they had continued. But once she was able to tell her story with that second person and have that person imprisoned, she did not have nightmares. So, I do throw it out there to all of you that there are ways that we can prep our kids to be able to report if something like that has happened. But don't feel like you are a victim in this case because someone can't just barge into your house and do that to your child. And I'm sure the police officer meant well. Pursue it. You were there. You visually saw it, and you don't need to be living in fear. You can get a restraining order for this person with some serious consequences if she breaks it. Another person says stranger danger, also in the home, climbing things, shelf units, etc. We really have to be careful. Some of our kids have that inclination to climb. My son would climb me. We went to a very sensory thing last week, and afterwards he climbed up my big 10-year-old child. I keep saying he's 11. He's 10. He climbed up my back and was practically on my head. And I said, my goodness, you haven't done this in a long time. But some of our kids do have that inclination to climb. Make sure that if you have shelving units, that they are not just tethered to the wall, but bolted to the wall and can handle a certain amount of pressure. And if you can't be assured of that, take them down for a while until you can get that under control. Don't be laying awake at night worrying about that kind of thing. And of course, the stranger danger thing is a big, big concern, and we talked about that a little bit earlier this week. Another person who said elopement is my biggest fear. It doesn't matter where we are. If he's scared or upset, he runs. Definitely something to be working on with an expert. You can improve that exponentially. We have somebody who wrote in response to the person whose husband's ex-wife had burst in. Wow, that's horrible. But to be honest with you, that doesn't sound right to me. What if your child was an infant who wouldn't be able to speak anyway? And it was an officer who told you this, which is basically legal advice. Don't take legal advice from a police officer. I love that. See an attorney for that before you just assume that he knows what he's talking about. I don't know how long ago this incident happened, but I would absolutely, all in caps, press charges. I'm with you. No matter how hard of a case I was told it would be, especially when it wasn't even anyone with legal knowledge telling you that, honestly, I'm not even sure if it's lawful for a police officer to have said that to you. Please, if you do nothing else, at least get a consult. Usually they're for free. Sometimes they will even do it by phone from an attorney. A restraining order wouldn't hurt either. Oh, great minds think alike. Okay. But, sometimes in the moment when you're in this situation, and somebody of authority, a police officer is of a certain authority, but it isn't necessarily the legal end of it. In that moment, we go, oh my gosh, and is this another thing that I want to take on, especially if I'm not going to be successful? So I'm glad that you wrote in and glad that you can get a couple of other opinions on this. Another person who says no fear, about what they're worried about, that he has no fear. He has climbed over balconies and hung there giggling. I can't leave this kid alone. And we see that with some of our kids, that they just don't have fear. Other kids don't experience pain. It can be very frightening. Get yourself some help. Get a good BCBA working with you to get those things under control. Another person who says the street, people drive like crazy here, and my city refuses to put up a sign on my street alerting drivers that there is an autistic, special needs, disabled child in the area. They will only do that for blind or deaf people. It's been suggested that I buy one myself and install it. But for one thing, I don't have the money to do that, and the city would only remove it anyway. Building code, permit compliance, or something. They don't even let people put up yard sale signs. Okay. We had this happen in a similar circumstance, and we were petitioning the city, and I was told the exact same thing. But what I was told that I could do is that I could daily put up a sandwich board if I took it down every night. And one of the things that I was told after the city told me that I could do that, and I realize your city, it might be different, but I would put up that sandwich board, and you can do that so inexpensively. You just make 2 pieces of plywood with a hinge in the middle, right, and paint it, and say, slow down, special needs child, child, or, you know, whatever you want to put on that sign. And you can put it out there and, you know, let them come and give you a ticket, because then you'll have press. I realize that, you know, that could create other issues for you. Make sure that you're up for that if you're going to do that. We actually talked about this with Temple Grandin, and Temple Grandin suggested have them put up the sign for the blind or deaf child. Because she was saying, from her perspective, and I think this is a good perspective, that drivers don't know what to do for an autistic child. Like, they don't know what that means. But that if the sign is put up for a blind child or a deaf child, I don't know if your city would be willing to do that. But I think that you should petition, and if you want some help with that, and if you want to, we can make a soundbite and call some of your city people out on the show that you could, you know, put on their website. Let me know. We'll name names for you to shame them into doing it. Because here's the thing. If you make a big enough fuss, then, and this is going to sound horrible, so hear me when I say this, if heaven forbid something were to happen to your child and you made this kind of a fuss, they would know that it would cost them so much money. And I'm talking even if your child stubbed a toe. And they do think in those terms. But if you, as a parent, you have to do what you have to do to keep your kids safe, right? Okay, and the person wrote back about and said, I'm filing a restraining order and it just happened, so I will speak to an attorney as well. Thank you very much. That's good. Okay, and we've got so many more things here, but we're essentially out of time, and it's a lot about elopement and kind of the same issues with being street safe. So we'll continue to talk about those things. But as I said, do what you have to do as a parent so that you can help your child to be as safe as possible. I think that's the big takeaway. Get the help that you need, and if there's something that I can do or that we can do, let us know. It's time to go to the A Word. This is the amazing ongoing documentary being made here by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He is now, I think at this point in the series, about to turn 4. He's been getting his early intervention for 2 years. He's in preschool. He's made great strides, but again, there's still more to do. We're still catching him up, and in some really great and substantive ways. So take a look. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Oh, she has that picture from Halloween? I want to see it. He looks so cute as Angry Bird. And, oh, want to see?
Yeah.
We've added statement. Have you seen that one?
No,
oh,
no.
Okay. So I say a statement, and he has to say a similar statement to what I said. So what we're targeting right now is I have an icy. So I would say, you know, I have a pen, and he would say, I have an iPod. And then we would just go back and forth. And with this one, we're targeting him while we're playing with something, just to make it more natural. So when they're doing play or anything like that, his peer would say something, and he can say the same thing. So let me set that up for you.
I'm laying on the floor.
I'm playing.
I see a girl.
Going down the steps.
She's going downstairs.
And there's Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, he's dragging behind.
I see Tigger.
Good job, Jack Riley.
Besides working on statement, Jack Riley is also learning sequencing. What he has to do is take images and put them in order. A few weeks ago, he started with 2 steps, and today he's working with 3 steps. What he has to do besides putting the images in order is he has to describe what's happening using words like first, then, and finally.
First, then, finally.
Yeah, by yourself.
We're going to use 3 boxes.
First, he
We're
builds.
going to use 3 steps. First, he makes a big, smaller tower. Then he makes a big tower. Then he makes a... No, let's try again. Finally, the pieces fall off on the table.
Okay, very good.
Say, don't do that, Lainey. Say, let go.
There you go. Get these in your words.
He's standing.
That was the A Word, and I would encourage all of you to watch this series in its entirety or as it applies to you. If there's a certain skill that you want to see when they introduce it to Jack Riley, you can go and search all of the different episodes that there are on their very own YouTube page, and I really want to encourage you to spend some time there, take a look, and use it as a tool in the way that works best for you. There's so many different ways that you can learn from that show. So there it is. There's their YouTube page. It's really an incredible series. I so applaud that family and the work that they've done and the level of sharing and the honesty. My goodness, really amazing family. We've had them on the show. They're incredible people. Really, really great service to our entire community. Also, when we were just talking about some of the different safety issues, and we were talking about a mom who had written on our Facebook page about the thing that she worries about is her child running and getting a sign, and we were talking about the sign in particular, and somebody wrote in and said, you need to make sure that the neighborhood knows what to do when a child runs. And, I don't know what the neighborhood is, but, that's certainly one thing that, and I appreciate you saying that, because it would be great. I think about my neighborhood and how many people go through my neighborhood, and there isn't a sign that I could put up if my child were to elope where I could detail everything and I could hand out flyers. It still wouldn't account for every person who comes by on the road. So I think that's why Temple was saying, don't even mess with that. Put up a blind child or a deaf child so that I think people know how to respond to that. I do think, we were talking the other day with Monica Holloway, and I was mentioning that where I grew up when I was a teenager, there was a boy who had autism who was an eloper and would frequently end up on my mother's porch, on her porch swing. And I know that mom didn't go around and explain everything, but if her child did end up at a certain house one or two times, and she certainly had a conversation with my mom, because my mom kept a roll of butter on Lifesavers, and we had, the plan that if somebody heard the swing on the porch, we were to go and look, and if it was Matthew, my mother would grab the Lifesavers, she would go down, and somebody else would know to call his mom and say, he's here, you can stop panicking, and then the mom would come running. Often she wouldn't know that he had eloped at all, that he was gone. And I think that she, in a very low-key way, went around and explained to different neighbors, if you do have a child that elopes, and you know that they elope, and you know that you're taking measures, I do think it's worthwhile to go door to door and explain and ask people, do you have a swimming pool, and do you have an alarm on it, and do you have a fence, and make them aware. It's something I would want to know if I was living in a neighborhood and I had a pool, that there was a child that was even a potential for. And I know that, sometimes we talk about, is it beneficial to tell somebody, and do we always want to disclose our children's diagnoses? And the line for me as a parent, and I can't make that decision for you, but the line for me is my child's safety at stake? Because if it is, I'm going to disclose, and I'm going to say, here's what's going on. If I don't think his safety, then I can hold back and say, I'm going to wait and see, how he does without it. But certainly when he was younger, man, and as I said, it has to be your decision, but I was so concerned that he get the best possible chance at safety that I made sure that everybody knew, and probably too much. But we do what we have to do, right? And then somebody else wrote in and said, I'm looking at pictures from the game, and I think they said JU, I think that's for jealous, and that I met one of their favorite actors, George Lopez. We were at the Dodger game last night, and I got to take at least a minute to talk about that, and then we got to get Ashley Colis in here to show you these fabulous pencil grips. But last night, Autism Speaks and the Dodgers got together to have an autism awareness night at Dodger Stadium. The pictures are on our Facebook. You should go and look and see what's there. They're right at the top. There's there's a picture of me with George Lopez, and there's a picture of me with Tommy Lasorda. We had a great time, and it was truly a lovely, lovely event. My husband and my son were there and experienced it just as spectators, and those of us from Autism Alive got to go on the field and meet and greet some of the people that were there. And for those of you who are wondering, there were a group of kids who were on the field, and my understanding was that anybody who bought 30 tickets, their child got to go on the field. And it was kind of amazing to see this group of kids. They were so patient. It was kind of a long period of time to expect kids to focus, but man, those kids were focused because it was really reinforcing to them. Each child was assigned to a player, so when the players ran out onto the field, and they could have an aide or a parent run with them as well, they got to run out onto the field with a certain player, and then afterwards they got to go with that player, and each was clutching a little baseball, and the player signed the baseball. I have to tell you, even now talking about it, I got chills to see the faces on these kids. And one little boy in particular got to throw out a pitch. George Lopez also threw out a pitch, but this little boy, and we got to interview him and his mom, and he walked out to that pitcher's mound, and it was all kind of hurry, wait, now go now, kind of thing. And, for kids with autism, you wouldn't think that would go over real well. And I'm telling you, these kids rose to the moment. They were really inspirational. It was just so sweet. I could just weep. And, but he went out there. I can't even imagine the pressure of standing out on that home plate and throwing out that pitch. And that child did a fabulous job. And George Lopez threw quite a pitch, too, I have to say. And Holly Robinson Peete was there. In fact, her entire family was there to support her. Rodney was there with her and all of the kids. We talked to her briefly. And it was right before she was going to sing the national anthem. And, they do interviews up on the Jumbotron. And I was standing really close to her when she was doing the interview. And so she was saying something, and then there's a time delay. And so you would see Holly talking, and it looked like a movie that wasn't dubbed right, because she was talking and she was standing right next to me and I could hear her, but then there was the echo, and I thought, man, I don't know how she concentrates through that. And then I was talking to her about doing this, because it's worse when you do the song. And she was fabulous. She just beautiful singing voice, really remarkable. Just another talent that Holly Robinson Peete has. So a lovely, lovely event, and the Dodgers were so sweet, and the players were so sweet with the kids, and the kids were amazing. And then to watch all the kids in the stadium, and even my own son, and I thought, baseball can be like watching paint dry sometimes, even for people who love baseball, right? How are a bunch of kids with autism going to do? Because it's already late. The game didn't start until 7:10, and I was really kind of concerned about how it was going to go. And, now it's so interactive, and there's so much technology in a baseball game. They really did a great job. The game, I'm ashamed to admit that we had to leave. School started yesterday, so we left at the top of the 8th, and at that point the Dodgers were trailing the Mets by 2. And I said, as soon as we leave, that the Dodgers are going to catch up and they're going to win. There's no way they're going to end this winning streak on the night of Autism Awareness. That's just not happening. We all know that. And, something's going to happen, and it's going to get very exciting around here. And, of course, we left, and we got out to the parking lot and got far enough away. And, of course, in the bottom of the 9th, they tied it, and they went into extra innings. I believe it was in the bottom of the 13th inning that Puig got the winning run in. And so the Dodgers did win, and we want to say, go Dodgers. That was really a very exciting thing. But I was home and in bed by then. You do what you have to do. In any case, it was a great event, and I just want to thank the Dodgers and thank Autism Speaks for hosting, and I want to encourage you to go to these kinds of events. I know we all get tired and we all get overwhelmed, but I was so glad last night that we were there, that we met, we greeted, and I was glad that we were there as a show, but I was glad that we were there as a mom, and my son had a really good time. So, and it was very autism friendly, and the kids were reinforced. So find something like that in your neighborhood to go to. It's worth it. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Ashley Colis is going to do the pencil grips with us. And don't forget, Travis Breeding, an author who is on the spectrum, is going to be with us after Ashley. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Another parent wants to know, how do I find out that one thing that my kid is really good at?
Now, when they get older, they're going to kind of divide into two groups. You're going to have the kids that become verbal, and then you're going to have the kids that are nonverbal, got many more problems. Maybe they still have epilepsy or some other problem. And they kind of need different services. And the ones that get verbal, what we need to be doing with them is develop the area of strength. And that area of strength often will show up around 3rd or 4th grade, sometimes earlier. But my ability in art showed up when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and it was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. Otherwise, it would have just been endless horse heads. You know, Mother would say to me, why don't you draw a picture of a beach or something else? You want to broaden it out. If the kid's fixated on trains, let's teach reading with trains, math with trains. Tap into that fixation, but develop the area of strength. Some kids it's going to be art. Other kids it's going to be mathematics. So you got a 3rd grader who's smart in math, and he wants a 6th grade math book. Give him the 6th grade math book. Don't bore him with the baby stuff. But that kid's going to have trouble with reading, because the common thing is the uneven skills. And then you have the kids that are the history buffs, and these kids are often really good at writing skills. You tend to have uneven skills, but tap into their fixations and use those to motivate, but broaden. If he likes trains, just watching them, well, we're going to take that interest in trains to do some math with it, or maybe read about the history of the railroad. You know, tap into that motivation. One of the things I really want to talk about is we got to stretch these kids. I'm not talking about physically stretching them, mentally stretching them to do new things. I'm seeing too many kids that haven't learned how to shop, how to order food at McDonald's. So you start out, let's say it's ordering food at McDonald's or at Burger King. So you take them up there and they watch you order it. And then eventually you go in when the store's not busy, and they have to go up and order it while you're sitting at the table watching, and then you coach them. And then eventually they can go in the restaurant themselves. I can remember I was scared to go to the lumber yard alone and buy lumber. And Mother made me go. And she knew I could do it. I had bought lumber with her many times. But there's a tendency to want to have somebody else there when they do it, and they've got to learn how to do things alone. And you gradually have got to kind of push it. You've got to stretch them. And I'm seeing too many kids not learning basic skills. Saw a 19-year-old honors student that actually knows how to drive that had never shopped in the grocery store all by herself. That is just ridiculous. You know, you've got to stretch them. You push too hard, there can be panic. And the other thing is no surprises. No surprises. I knew all about the ranch long before I went there. I'd talked to Ann. But if you don't stretch these kids, they don't grow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for great stuff with Ashley, and you truly have great stuff with you here today. This is sort of like Disneyland for, I think, autism parents. Every time I've shown one of these packs to somebody, they go, ooh, and they want to look at everything. Of course, we're talking about pencil grips, and we're talking about Ashley Colis. We call this segment Great Stuff with Ashley because Ashley is a BCBA board-certified behavior analyst who has extensive experience working with children truly around the world with autism, and she also has impeccable good taste, and she's a brilliant shopper. These are great credentials in life.
They are. Someone was saying yesterday they were going to use a corporate card to buy some stuff for a department, and I was like, let me know if you need help because I'm really good at spending money. But he did a good job. I looked at what he did, and he did a good job.
There you go.
Definitely one of my hobbies.
So we've been talking about back to school, and we talked a little bit about different pencil grips, and then Ashley went and did a whole bunch of research for us, and we've had this lovely company donate these two packs. There's the Sampler 1 and the Sampler 2, and they have the neatest array of tools to be able to help to get handwriting easier and more legible.
Right.
So do we want to go over some, I mean, some of the things in here we're a little mystified by because they're cool, but we're not sure exactly what the benefits are. But I think part of it is it's just reinforcing for kids.
Yeah, and I think so too. And when I got these, I want to say the company's name. This is from TheraPro. TheraPro. And they are extremely nice and they're extremely helpful. So if you are interested in getting some on your own, of course these ones will be going to some lovely viewers.
Yes.
you can always email them or call them, and they'll be able to help you.
And they'll send you a catalog.
They will, and the catalog's amazing. I don't know if you want to get the catalog. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it is
has
dangerous.
So many amazing things in it.
It is. It's very exciting.
When we were talking about the reinforcing value of these things, they have one that's a little dinosaur.
I just love that.
And I just thought that's really cool. And a kid who might think it's not cool to have a pencil grip, like they don't think any of these are something they want on their pencil, this one might be cool.
Yeah.
They might go for this. And it's got, you can see how I'm holding it like this. It makes it cool. And
it does make it very cool.
Really thoughtful.
I don't know if we've got a really good shot of. It just looks like a blue blob, but it looks just like a dinosaur, and it's got the hole down the center so that you can stick the pencil down, and it's arranged so that once you get it on a pencil, you pretty much have to do that tripod grasp in order to hold on to it. So pretty spectacular.
And I want to show you some of the ones that are a little bit bigger. So this one is even going to help me so that I'm not putting my fingers flat against the pencil and putting it too tight.
Right.
It's going to give me that space in between.
Yes.
I think this is comfortable. I've used something like this before, and sometimes I like those little tiny pens that are like this.
Yes.
Because I can really get it.
Precise.
I like to write very fancy cursive all the time. I'm terrible with printing, so.
And it's I think it's great to have the sampler pack because then you can sit down and try them with your child and see which one is going to work for you. Like, this is really comfortable.
That's comfortable, and I think that's an issue, is the comfortability. So this one also, my fingers, if you can see, are going behind this little star. And so it keeps them in that right position.
And that alignment.
And they're not moving anywhere. They're not going down too far on the pencil. We don't want a kid writing like this, and we don't want them writing like this.
Yeah.
So you put it where you want it to be, and it stays.
And a lot of times our kids complain that their hands get tired, and we know that a lot of our kids have, they're a little bit behind. Talk about catching them up. They're a little bit behind in terms of some of their motor development, fine motor development. And so this kind of thing, even if I were having to do a lot of writing, I think this would help my hand not to cramp. So a very cool thing.
This one is not comfortable for me, for example. And I might be using it wrong, but it also, maybe my fingers are too big for it.
It might be.
But it's not as comfortable. I think this one would be something that you'd have to try.
Yeah, and I think, but that's really the key here, is that there's no two hands are exactly alike, and no two hands that need exactly the same thing. Yeah, I tried that one the other day, and I said that one I would not like, and I would assume that it's going to be the same thing with our kids, that there are going to be some that they're going to like and some that they're not going to like.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the spacer.
Yes, I thought this was so cool because I've had a lot of kids. It's hard to write and then do the finger space and keep going, and we're talking about a lot of dexterity and motor skill.
Because you know how some kids, they start to do their letters and they don't, the putting the space in between the letters, so it's just one long word, it can drive you crazy.
Well, and they're going to get marked
them
off in school.
Yes, and they teach them to put their finger down to count as the space, but yeah, that's too much for some of our kids.
This is so cool.
Don't we love this?
This is a two-finger space.
Yes.
So if you're writing, you can put it, here on the paper, and it automatically gives them the space. And they don't need to be holding it. They can just put it on their paper and then continue to write.
Exactly.
And it also has a little measuring thing on the other side, too. I thought that was kind of handy. And then this is a single space. So this two-finger space is younger.
Yeah.
This is going to be older.
Love it.
Yeah,
clever,
I think
clever,
that this is something also, one of those accommodations that we talk about, that your kid can take this with them and they can modify as they get older. There's a lot of different skills that go into being able to reason spatially and plan spatially, and a lot of our kids struggle with that even at age 10, 11, 12, and when they're doing really difficult academic tasks. And they struggle with things like having legibility in their writing. And we've talked about using, apps and using keyboards and using computers in school. Some schools are on board with that and some aren't. But this is something that they could use, and it's okay. And we could change it as they get older so that it's more discreet.
You know what else I love about this? Can I have the blue one? Because what they did for my son was that he had a popsicle stick that he would lay down to be his finger in between, because he didn't have the dexterity to lay his finger down and then be able to write. So they gave him a popsicle stick, but you can't see through a popsicle stick. This is see-through. It's blue, so it's still showing him and it's got the little fingers there, but it's see-through, so he can still see the letters, which
Yeah.
would have helped a great deal. So I really
So if you
like
have
this.
a 2-finger space and you're ready to move on to a 1-finger space, you could still use this because you could line it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I
love these, and I'm so grateful to TheraPro again. They also sent us some very cool pencils. Like this one, if you feel it, it feels a little bit rubbery on the outside, and it is already shaped like a triangle.
Yep.
So we're going to get the grip automatically on something like this, and we can add one of these grips to it as well, because the grips are, you know, moldable on the inside. And so you could add a simple one like this, and you could put it on here. And then also they've sent us ones that have different weight. Excuse me, like a number 2 pencil. We were talking about using a number 2 pencil. Like this one, I believe, is a number 4. So it's really thick. And the lead inside is pretty hefty.
Isn't it funny? When I was a kid, I remember them always specifying you must have a number 2 pencil. And at some point I went, aren't they all? Yeah, what else? Is there a number 4? And now we see the number 4. But you have to special order those.
This one is really thick. You guys
that looks
probably
like a
can't
carpenter
see that.
pencil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a child who maybe isn't using enough pressure. We need a little bit darker, so we have a bigger pencil.
Right. Or the kid who's constantly breaking the point off because the lead is so thin. I would think that would be good for them too.
And this one has if you hold it, it feels pretty comfortable. It has a built-in, you know, shape that makes you hold it a certain way.
It's triangle, but it's beveled so that it's not cutting into your finger.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love these so much.
Okay,
like
can I tell you which one we all love the most? It's the one you just grabbed.
Yeah. I think this one is awesome.
I think every girl, and because I took it to a meeting at school, and everybody was like, "What is that? I got to see that." It's just got little prickles on it, but it's blue. It almost looks sparkly. I think it does have some sparkles on it. It's very cool and squishy. It looks almost like a
little
couche.
massage.
Yeah.
And this is cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
We always talk about stuff being cool, and we don't want our kids to be singled out, or why is Johnny using that?
Yeah.
And so these kind of things are really cool, and teachers could use them as reinforcers for the students if she wanted to. And I think this one is cool. I liked it when I tried it. I was like, oh, it feels nice. And it's kind of that sensory thing, too. So we have kids who are rubbing their hands on their chair, on the carpet, or hair. And so maybe we can give them a little bit of sensory with this.
Yes.
And they're going to probably ask to use this one. If you're at OT and you have a box of grips, they're going to probably ask for this one.
So a very cool thing, we've got the Sampler 1 and we've got the Sampler 2. And we're going to give you details on Facebook about how you can win one of these. So be staying tuned on our Facebook to see how you can be the proud owner of one of these. But you can also order one of them, or you can order any one of the individual things on TheraPro.
Yeah, TheraPro.com.
Okay.
You can go there, and they have a ton of things, and they are all divided into sections, so it's a really easy to navigate website.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're extremely helpful.
It is one of those things where it's like falling down a rabbit hole. You'll go and you see all these things that you want to do. So stay sane, but it's a good place to make a wish list. And you know, we're getting ready for holidays coming up, and people are going to ask you, what does your child want? Or for their birthday, what do they want? You know, so have your wish list and let people know. There's nothing wrong with saying to people, you know, this is the toy or this is the pencil grip or whatever. Make sure it's something reinforcing to your child, but because always we want that. But it's a great company.
Yes, I love them.
Okay, thank you so much for breaking down the pencil thing for us. I so appreciate you having you here. Do we know what we're talking about next week?
We do. We have apps for studying. So a little bit of our older kids, but I can't tell you how many times I've heard that my kid doesn't know how to study.
Yeah.
And it's something that you need to learn. So I have some ideas for that.
I'm
for
excited about
planning
that.
And schedules. Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay.
And so we can talk about that next week. And then we'll be announcing the winners of the pencil packs, and we'll announce the winner of the backpack.
Okay, so we're going to do all of that next Thursday. You guys won't want to miss that. Thank you so much, Ashley. All right, stick with us. We are going to take a break, and we got some stuff that we have to cover, and then in just a little while, Travis Breeding is going to be with us. Stick with us.
So basically, when we talk about how to teach safety, there are so many levels and areas of safety to teach, but we try to first start off in teaching a simpler level. So for example, let's say we're trying to teach the child to stay within their yard and not run out of their yard. The first thing that we're probably going to work on is inside, in a more controlled setting, teach them to stop when we say stop, or come when we ask them to come. And then when they're successful in the structured, non-distracting environment, then we're going to take them outside to the front yard and teach them, okay, when I say stop, you're supposed to stop.
Stop.
Good stopping, Jack.
We're also going to make sure that when we initially give them the instruction, we're at a close enough distance that we can help them to stop, so then they don't develop a pattern of running away when we've called them and not stopping. Once they're consistently responding within a close distance, then we're going to gradually increase the distance so that they're responding from a further distance. And then we can also teach some kids that here are your boundaries and this is the area you have to stay in. Or when we go somewhere, you have to always be able to see me. And let's say, or you have to be an arm's length distance away from me. So teaching rules that the child will follow when they go out in public.
And there are so many different areas. You know, we've been talking about escape and elopement and things like that, but, you know, then there's also stranger danger. And that becomes a dicey thing, and that I think it's individual to each and every family. You know, I know people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers, other people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers unless I'm also talking to them, if I'm talking to them. And then, of course, you know, we have to be careful about teaching them which strangers, because if they're lost, obviously we don't want the kid who's hiding in the bush as the policeman goes by, you know, somebody, how to recognize who in the community. So there are so many different lessons that I can think of that a child has to be taught in order to fully be able to generalize 100% of the time how to behave within a circumstance.
And we go piece by piece then. So for example, with stranger awareness, we could possibly teach it through photographs first and say, you know, is this person a stranger? How do you know that they're a stranger? If they're a stranger, what can you do with them? Like, can you ride home with them? No. Can you accept something from them? No. Well, what if this, you know, giving them many different scenarios, like you were saying, so that they know exceptions of when it is okay and when it's not okay. And then also acting it out as well.
Yeah.
So I say, I'm so-and-so and I'm at the grocery store and I'm offering you a sample of candy, but I work at the store, you know, and mom is with you. So knowing when to make exceptions and when it's okay to do something versus not doing something. And then, of course, sometimes you can also set up a situation. So, for example, you tell your best friend that you're going to the store and that maybe your child's never met that person before, and they approach your child and act out something that you've been practicing. And, you know, fortunately, because you've set it up, you know how your child might react if it actually happens.
So that rehearsing something over and over and over again is really going to be key.
It's very important.
All right.
Yes.
Safety, it's the biggest issue. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. As if we didn't have enough exciting things in the show, we had one of our favorite guests happen to be passing through the hallway, and since he ducked his head in to say hi, I said, that's it, sit down in the chair, mic him for just a couple of minutes. And I'm talking about Nick Yates. Nick, thank you for coming in and being willing to be mic'd on such short notice.
Thank you for having me back, Shannon.
And so for our viewers who have not seen you before, you are an amazing person who has worked here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. You just graduated from college.
Thank you.
You are getting ready to teach for America, yes?
No, not Teach for America.
Okay, what
AmeriCorps.
AmeriCorps, different thing.
Different thing.
Different thing entirely. And all of these things are wonderful, and I love talking to you about all these things. The little asterisk after Nick's name, sometimes when we're here, not in his life, not in his everyday life, but the asterisk that we like everybody to know, because I think it's important to you, is that when Nick was a child, he had a diagnosis of autism. Nick no longer has a diagnosis of autism. And Nick is beautiful in every way, shape, and form. And I always say this to Nick because I appreciate you for you, but then there's always that program running in the back of my head going, look at what's possible.
Thanks,
and
Shannon. I
it
appreciate
makes me want to weep. But a couple of times you have come up over this last summer when people have been talking about, outcomes and things. And I mention you from time to time because you're an inspiration to all of us.
Well, thank you, and likewise.
And we haven't had you on since you graduated from college. Pretty amazing.
Thank you, but it's just the beginning.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the thing about that piece of paper is nobody can ever take it away from you.
That is true.
And it really says something about the things that you can accomplish.
Thanks.
And then what there's that thing that they ask people, now you've won this, what are you going to do? So what did you do immediately afterwards?
So 4 days after I walked the stage, I flew from Seattle to Chicago. I was there for a week, and then Philadelphia and New York for a couple days each. Yeah. Then from there, I flew across the pond to Europe. Yeah. And I was in Paris the first 2 weeks of July. That's where I happen to have relatives.
Wow.
I stayed with them. And then I was in Germany and Amsterdam and Brussels a few days each. And then back to New York for a few days before coming back here.
So you really did the full tour kind of thing?
Well, a lot. I mean, it's just the beginning. There's still so much more to see. But for my first time on the continent, it was great. And all of this was the best trip I've been on to date.
So, of everything that you saw and everything you did, what's the one thing that if we said, you just got to tell us about this one thing, what would be the one thing you couldn't leave out?
If anything, when you go to Paris, save the best for last by going to the top of the Eiffel Tower. That being said, give yourself plenty of time.
Okay.
Because even if the ticket lines aren't that long, there's still going to be a lot of people nonetheless. And to try to get a lot of people onto an elevator to the top is crazy.
Okay.
Especially since you can't go directly from the ground to the top.
So you can walk part of the way up, but you can't go to the very top. You've got to catch the elevator at some point. Okay, I wasn't sure about that. And I'm glad that you told me this because so often, there's like the touristy thing to do, and you get there and you do that and you go, okay, I did the touristy thing, but then there's so much else that's...
Absolutely.
But it really delivers.
Yes, and
the Eiffel Tower.
And even when you travel on your own, it helps when you stay with people you know because they really give you good tips on insight and advice as to what to do to make the most of your time. And for that, just my whole trip turned out to be better than I expected it would be.
I love that. And I'm a foodie, so I also have to ask this question. What was the best food you had?
Oh, my goodness. Especially pretty much everywhere I went had the best of everything. But let's see. Belgium certainly had the best waffles.
Okay.
Chocolate.
Well, that would stand to reason.
Between Germany and Belgium, it's a tie between them as far as who has the best beer. France has the best wine.
Okay.
And then Chicago, Philly, New York certainly have a lot of good stuff to offer
so you
up
had
their
some
sleeves.
Good food.
Absolutely.
Nick, I'm so glad you're back. And now you're getting ready to leave to go do AmeriCorps.
That's correct.
And what will you be doing for AmeriCorps?
So this is a program in Federal Way, which is located between Seattle and Tacoma, and 40 miles from where I went to school at the Evergreen State College in the capital of Olympia. And for them, I will be working as a mentor and tutor in a middle or high school. And I don't know which site I'll be serving in just yet. We will figure out towards the end of our training. We have to do a couple weeks of training at the start of the term. And this really ties in well with my future academic and career aspirations. Probably, and as I may have told you before, back at Evergreen, there's a master's in teaching program that I plan to apply to after taking this year and the next off to gain the necessary experience and establish my residency. And I'm glad I came across this program because I found out that several participants have gone on to this graduate program at my alma mater.
Cool.
Conversely, some of the graduates on that end have gone on to be interviewed and hired by the school district I'm working in. So it feels like it's going to be a great fit, and I'm excited to take this on.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. The future of America education. I'm glad it's in Nick's hands. I love that.
Let's
Nick,
hope so.
Yes, I'm so excited for you, and I love that you keep in touch and that you drop by. And thank you for being a good sport and coming in and talking with us on the air.
Thank you.
As you know, we're going to take a break now, and then we're going to come back and talk with Travis Breeding. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank
it's
you
a red
again,
letter day when you're here. All right, stick with us. Travis Breeding, who is an author on the spectrum, has, I believe, 15 books now. 15 books. He's prolific, right? So Travis will be with us via Skype from New York after these messages.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT?
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, they wouldn't be able to receive a service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have joining us via Skype from Indiana, author Travis Breeding. Travis, thank you so much for being with us on short notice today.
No problem.
We're so thrilled to have you on the show. You're a very prolific author, 11 books, and you've got a new book. Is it come out or it's coming out?
It's already released.
Okay. All right. Tell us the title of this book.
It's called Autism, I Have Desires Too.
And the subject matter?
It's all about puberty, dating, relationships, and sexuality for teens and young adults on the spectrum.
Okay, and this is a subject we definitely need to hear more about. But Travis, you also identify yourself as an adult who is on the spectrum, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I have autism, and was diagnosed when I was 22.
And what better voice to hear this from than from somebody who is on the spectrum? So who exactly is this book for? Is this a book that we're going to give to a parent to talk about with a teenager? Or are we going to give this directly to the teenager?
The book is multiple audiences, really. Whenever I write something, I try and write it at a level where it can kind of intertangle with different audiences. And the book is definitely for parents, to be given to a parent. And ideally, I would like to see parents going through this book with their teenagers as well. And also, a book is definitely a must-have for anybody who's therapists or educators, things like that. So.
And Travis, what would you say, what's the biggest misconception that parents and therapists are walking through the world thinking about in terms of puberty and sexuality in individuals who are on the spectrum? Where are we really getting it wrong?
Really, where we're getting it wrong is we're not, I don't know if you've ever heard the term the birds and bees of sexuality and puberty or things like that. Sexuality is a thing that we in America are uncomfortable talking about.
Yes.
And so sometimes when we do things, when we're teaching our kids, we don't fully explain things. We try and bypass the question or take the short answer, take the short route. And so the situation might happen. This is just a classic example. Sometimes when people are teaching sexuality, they're using pictures that are like animated, cartoon-like pictures of body parts.
Mm-hmm.
Really not going to help your child. That's really not going to do any good. As crazy as it sounds, the teens need to see the real image, what it looks like, how exactly, so they know what they're getting into. So we can't kind of sugarcoat it. We need to go more in depth and talk about what it really is and explain things like that. And also when we're dealing with teens on the spectrum, you have to use real language. You can't use, terms that you can't be afraid to say the word penis.
Right. We like to speak euphemistically, and we like to couch everything and be very politically correct. But when you're trying to teach a totally new concept to an individual on the spectrum, this is not going to be effective teaching strategy, correct?
Not at all.
Yeah.
And you really got to also, there's Peter Gerhardt. He's a great behavior analyst, and he goes into the schools every 2 to 3 years. They send their therapist into schools just to find out from teens, other kids, they need to know from other neurotypical teens, what are the slang words being used nowadays? Because you really got to go in, you got to teach your kids the slang terms.
And they do change.
Yes, they do very rapidly. And you're going to end up in a situation where your child, if they don't know that language, is going to end up being bullied or made fun of.
Yes. Travis, I think that this book sounds absolutely incredible. Where can we get it?
You can get it at my website that I have. I have a list of all my books on there.
And we've got that up on our screen right now.
Okay, you got it up? Great.
Yep. And so we can go there, and so there are many books that are on there. There's a total of 11 books that are on there. And what is the cost of the new book?
$26.99.
Okay. But a great book, a great resource for anybody who has a child who's on the spectrum. And I would imagine it'd be good to read it before they get into puberty, right?
Definitely. You want to prepare because you want to do things very important. Obviously, I'm not a girl, but some things that I've learned is a girl going into puberty is going to have sensory issues with things like bras or pads or tampons.
Yes.
And so a good idea to do with your girl, and I talk about this in the book, would be to start, by the age of 10 or 11, have her start wearing a pad for a couple hours at a time and desensitize that a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of help prepare for that. And you can probably do the same thing. I don't really know about this because I'm not an expert, but you can probably do the same thing with bras. Start them a little sooner.
Yeah.
Desensitize them a little bit. So you got to be one step ahead because, and you can't don't take things for granted because people with autism are very literal thinkers. I know a girl who ended up being pregnant and she's in her younger 20s and she's on the spectrum. And here's a situation that happened. growing up, mom and dad always told her, you can't get pregnant until you get married. Meaning they didn't approve of her getting pregnant until she would get married.
Yes.
But he thought mom and dad meant physically and scientifically it wasn't possible for her to get pregnant until she was married. So context is a huge thing, and I have an entire book on social context, social thinking. You just really got to be very literal, and if you think you're being literal, take it a step even farther.
Yeah, we got to be clear. Travis, I thank you so much for taking the time to write this book and to be so clear about it, and to not have to feel self-conscious about it, because clearly, you get right down to brass tacks with it. So we want to encourage people to go and get the book, and we want to celebrate you for having done this. So I thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back to finish out the show and finish out the week, because this is the last show of the week. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son, Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something, and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have some different business things that we want to take care of. First of all, I want to remind all of you that Dr. Amanda Adams is doing a webinar this afternoon in just a couple of short hours. In fact, in about an hour and a half. So that's 1:30 to 2:30 Pacific time. That translates to 4:30 to 5:30 if you're on Eastern Standard Time here in the United States. And I'm going to count on you guys to do the math if you're in a different zone, as many of you are. And again, the title of that free webinar, there's no cost, and you tune in right here and you can ask questions, is what if that turns out to be autism? So they're talking about preventing autism through early identification and intervention. And Dr. Adams was also talking about when it is under prescribed, when you didn't get enough services. So definitely some things to look at. On this list here, it says this presentation will include discussion of how studies in neurological development provide further evidence for the effectiveness of early intensive behavioral therapy. Discuss the considerations for designing effective prevention programs for very young children, and understand the concepts of partially treating autism and how to address remaining behavioral issues. So if you have a child who's very young, you're going to want to make sure that you see this free webinar. If you have a child who got diagnosed late or didn't get enough, what you consider to be enough therapy or anybody else considers to be enough therapy early on, things that you can be doing now. So really, she was amazing earlier in the studio with us. So that is today. Again, the time is from 1:30 to 2:30 Pacific Standard Time. That's 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern Time. And we are counting on you to do the math for for that. Now, we are not going to be here tomorrow live doing the show. We'll be back next Monday I believe we're doing a full week of shows next week. We're towards the end of the summer now. I know we have a shoot on Friday, but I think we're still doing a show. Emily might correct me on that. I'm not absolutely positive. It is true, she says. Okay. Also wanted to take a couple of minutes to do a shout out to our very good friend Mike Hipple. Mike, as you know, has been on the show, I think twice now that Mike has been on the show, and he is an amazing young man, truly an inspiration to all of us. And Mike has CP, and he just graduated from high school, and he is going to start school, I believe, very soon for college, and is working towards being able to be a therapist. Is incredibly interested in autism, which I just love. Mike has written a book that we've covered here before on the show. I understand that the books have arrived, Mike. They are not yet in my hands. There's a configuration that once they get to the building and they go through the mail, and then it gets parceled out to the different places, and then it gets brought out to the offices. So the books are here, I'm told, but they are not yet in my hands. But Mike has a lovely book that we have featured here before on the show that I think is ideal for all of our kids to be able to look at and relate to the fact that kids are different when they start school, and that a difference doesn't prevent you from being able to do what you have to do. And in the book, Mike has a boy who's in a wheelchair and negotiating things, and talks about how important it is for all of us to be able to have access in the way that we need to have access, and be treated as the individuals that we are, and not be judged based on the access that we need. So truly an amazing book, and we're going to be featuring that on Monday. Mike has been so sweet to send us some copies of the book that we're going to be giving away on the show, and I'm going to give you more details about that on Monday. But there are several things that we were going to give away the backpack today, but we decided to hold off, so you still have an opportunity to go on our Facebook page and register to win the backpack. And Emily's cycling through some of the ways you can get a hold of us, by the way. And now there's also going to be a post about those pencil grips, those really cool, awesome pencil grips. I took them to a meeting the other day, and everybody was so excited about them. The OT was taking pictures of different things, so it's very cool. Anyway, I want to thank you. This has been a really interesting week and a very exciting week, and I know that we just have more things to look forward to in the coming weeks. We've got some really exciting shows coming up for you. I'm finishing the schedule till the end of the year tomorrow, so if there's something you want us to cover, now is your moment, from now to the end of the year, and we hope that you will. I also want to say that we got a message from our viewer that wrote in yesterday from Pakistan that Dr. Doreen answered a question, and your question is about video aids, and I'm going to be getting back to you about that next week. So the show is just a little too packed today, but we are essentially out of time here. I just want to tell all of you what a privilege it is to be here with you in this space, and to be sharing this journey with you. We will be back on Monday. That's at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.